I am Steve, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been through the process as it's laid out in the big book with the help of a big book step study sponsor. Meetings like this, a loving higher power. I've made a bunch of amends, and the more I practice 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis, the better my days go. Eric and Chris, thank you very much. It's an honor to be your first speaker, and hopefully I will not mumble. So the first step, admitted we were powerless over alcohol. I've over the last couple of meetings I've been to, I've been thinking about, identifying and not comparing, which is what I was told to do when I came in. Because when I came in, I was young, and most of the people in the meetings were a lot older than me. And, I heard people talk about experiencing starting drinking when they were young and into manhood and adulthood and drinking for a long time before it was a problem. And if I had compared myself to them, I would have said, well, then I'm not an alcoholic because I stopped drinking when I was 20. And so I had to, luckily I got a sponsor right away. I had to look at what was my drinking. My sister brought me to AA. She is in the program and has been in the program 9 months longer than me. My anniversary date is August 1st, 1979. And she started me going to AA, and she had me get a sponsor right away, even though I did not know what that was. I said, why do I need a sponsor? She said, because I can't keep driving you to meetings. I need to do my own program. I said, oh, okay. So she told me to go talk to Ray, and I asked him to be my sponsor. I didn't even know what I was asking him. And he accepted me, and he shared with me about alcoholism. And I learned that I had a disease that my life, he said, I learned I was powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable. The powerlessness part was the interesting thing for me, because when I first started drinking, alcohol was very powerful. I definitely had an allergic reaction. It affected me in a way that it doesn't affect most people. It completely turned off and shut out all of the negative stuff that was going on inside me. I grew up in a violent home, and I had a lot of baggage, and that first time that I drank, it all disappeared. It was amazing. For me, it was the most it was the biggest change in my life I'd ever experienced. And I had not seen what alcohol was about. My family didn't drink. And so I didn't know it was something you had to be cautious about. I didn't know you had to, be mindful about it and not go overboard. The family I grew up in didn't talk. We didn't ask questions. We didn't share advice. So I didn't know that after the alcohol kicked in, my next thought, I didn't know, was not a healthy thought. It was, I want to stay drunk the rest of my life, and that's what I'm going to shoot for. And I didn't know that was abnormal. It seemed perfectly reasonable because I had never felt so good. So my drinking, it took off. My parents weren't really in. Their attempts at discipline had stopped when I hit teenage years, and I was kind of, able to do whatever the hell I wanted. I mean, in my drinking days, I even totaled 2 of their cars, and I was still allowed to drive one of their cars. I mean, it didn't make any sense, but I still took advantage of it because I needed and I wanted to get drunk and party and have a good time. That was all what life was about. After I got out of high school, my grandfather gave me some money to go to college. And I told him, don't give it to me. It's not going to work. And he said, no, I want you to have it. Because I knew when I got in groups of people, I knew I blacked out. I didn't know what blackout, the word, but I knew I blacked out when I drank almost every time. And I knew that when I was around large groups of people, it wasn't good. And I couldn't explain that to him. So he gave me the money and I bought a car instead. And no one in my family said, what are you doing? Why'd you buy a car? It's just no no, no restraint. It was really strange. So it was the 70s and there were a lot of substitutes around. And so I mixed things a lot. And I think that might have had a lot to do with how my ride was so fast. By the time I was a junior in high school, I was pretty much a daily blackout drinker. And I was doing substitutes on the weekend for something different. If you had something that would help me have fun or help me feel better or help me not feel, you were my friend. If you didn't, then I didn't want to hang around with you. But because of that kind of mindset, and the way the alcohol had a grip on me, which I didn't understand, I started to hate family gatherings and holidays because I'd have to behave. I'd have to, not drink and do drugs. And it was something that I didn't want to not have to do that. So life was becoming difficult because I wasn't in school. I was working. I was trying to hang on to jobs, and it was really tough. I got fired from one job because they got mad. I took a 3.5-hour lunch. So they didn't say a thing about that fact that I smelled like booze, but it was crazy. I had my whole existence was about me and feeling good, and I didn't care if I hurt people. A lot of times I didn't even know if I hurt people. I just would, just go away. If things weren't working out, you just wouldn't see me again. I accepted less and less and less. My drinking buddy Brian, he liked to try to polish a fifth of Jack Daniels a night, and oftentimes he would get sick. And that was not, that was a bummer. It would interrupt the evening and make a mess and all that. And so because of the family I grew up in, I learned to lay low and to ride under the radar. So I adopted the lifestyle of making myself vomit, so that if I was feeling like I was going to, I wouldn't get caught by accident and I could go back to drinking. And, my friends and I would joke I was making love to the porcelain queen, just crazy stuff. And I was accepting this as a way of life, just settling for less. It was crazy. So I knew like combinations of things and how they would make me feel and how long they would last and all that kind of stuff. Things that I would put in my body. And after a while, it stopped working. It got really weird, like the Twilight Zone. If it was a Friday and I had a job and I had cash, I'd go get some booze. And sometimes I would drink my first beer and, just go along for the weekend, just, moderately drunk all weekend or high or whatever. But sometimes I'd drink it and I'd go into a blackout instantly and come out of it days later, not knowing what was going on. And the biggest example of what really shook me before I came to AA was a little background. I hated amphetamines. Okay. And I woke up one day, I had like $3 in my pocket, and I had totaled my car, so I didn't have a car. My motorcycle I had put in the garage and hadn't ridden it for a long time because too many spokes were broken. So I called up. I grew up in a dry town, so there was no alcohol to get. So I called up my dealer and I said, "Do you have any weed?" He goes, "No, but I got some speed." I said, "Great, I'll be right down." Click. And I had sworn off that stuff. I walked down, went to him, gave him $2. He gave me 2 pills. I popped them and walked back home. And I'm the kind of guy who liked to get drunk and high and use muscle relaxants and listen to the Moody Blues and Pink Floyd. Well, I'm home and I'm on amphetamines and I'm pacing like a madman. And I'm terrified because I had promised I would never take that stuff again. I was out of control and I knew it. So I had $1. So I hopped on my motorcycle and I drove to the next town, regardless of its condition. And I bought a beer because that's all I could afford, $1 worth. And I went off into a side road, guzzled it down, and blacked out. I came out of it, I think it was about 2 weeks later. And I was fine, and my motorcycle was back in the garage, and it was fine. And that scared me because I just knew I was completely out of control. So I told my drinking buddies I wanted to stop drinking, and they supported me in that. And I made it 2 weeks once, and we were so happy and pleased that we celebrated with about a month party, which kind of negated the 2 weeks of not drinking. And I just found that I couldn't stay stopped. I could stop, but I couldn't last very long. And it was I didn't know what to do. I tried not drinking, and like I mentioned, I didn't grow up where you talk to people about problems or ask advice. And so I was on my own, and I thought that I had tried everything that was to try, and so I just gave up. I gave up. I didn't give up drinking. I gave up to drinking. I just whenever it happened, and whatever happened, it happened. I got my own car, totaled that, hurt a lot of people, and I felt bad about it, but the drinking and the drugs would take that away. But now that it had become unpredictable, another thing was happening is it wasn't blacking me out anymore. No matter what I would ingest, it wouldn't happen. And it was terrifying because I'd be up in my bedroom and the ghosts of the past would come back and I couldn't get them away. And it was terrifying. I didn't know what to do. Excuse me. So one night there was a knock on my door, and it was my sister. And my sister had moved back home. She was like my partying idol. When I was younger, she would get me stoned and then drive me home and drop me off at the house and laugh as she drove away, as I'd go stumble into the house and try to get past my parents. But I thought that was great. It was silly. But yeah, she was my idol. But she had to move home. My mother and I had to go to rescue her from her drunken husband and his drunken brother a couple of times. And that was kind of a nightmare. And so she was home now, and I guess she was going to go to college, which no one in my family ever had. And she smiled now. And that was not something she had ever done. She'd been going to this thing called AA. Didn't know what it was. Had no idea. And what she told me that night when I opened my door was, she said, "Steve, there's a place for people who are sick like you to go to feel better." That's how she presented the program to me. And I'm glad she did it that way, because when she said sick like me, it was like a shock. It's like, oh my God, somebody knows. I'd been sick a lot. I'd made myself sick, and so it was startling to hear that. And I told her politely no, but in my early sobriety, I used to say, I told her to get lost, and but then I cleared up and I realized what the reality was. But a couple of months later, I dove into the bottle, and a lot of bad things happened. A couple of months later, I asked her if that offer was still open, and she said, yeah. So she took me to AA, and I started at Needham Friday night outside of Boston, and I got a sponsor named Ray, and he sponsored a lot of people. We didn't have the big book step study back then in that area at that time. We used the 12 and 12. I went to an AWOL. I did the Hazelden guide. I did a couple of 4th and 5th steps. And then that was right as I was I turned 5 years sober. And I realized I was 5 years sober and I was homicidal. I wanted to kill my father. And I brought it up at a meeting, and people said that might not be good for your sobriety. And I agreed. And it wasn't the killing him. It was the getting caught, because I knew I'd get caught. But I never made that attempt. So anyways, I'm powerless over alcohol, and I started to feel healthy again. I got active in the program. I started to work the steps the way we did back then. So then life changed. I've been sober, it's now like 45 years. So life changed. I was 20, I was getting healthy. I got a job. Things were really going really well. And then I moved. I had never moved before, and the change was I didn't understand how much of a change that would be, and I couldn't really handle it very well. And the town I moved to, the people in AA didn't know what they were doing, and the meetings were horrible. And, it was me. It wasn't them. And they wrecked AA for me. And there was in that area, there were these guys that were like, the big names, and they would hang out at the friendlies in my town. So I couldn't go to friendlies anymore. They ruined it for me. So, fast forward, I went through a lot of, I kept isolating. I would go to a meeting when I thought I needed it, which wasn't very good. It wasn't very often. And every time I went, I was excellent. Things were wonderful, total BS. I was dying inside. So then at 50 years old and 30 years sober, I hit a crisis, a bottom, an emotional bottom. And I didn't drink. I didn't take drugs. I wanted to kill myself. But I finished. I tried to get committed. They wouldn't commit me. And so I went back to AA because they told me to. They said, maybe you should go back and do what you need to do to be healthy. So I said, all right. I got to a Saturday meeting in the town I was living in, walked in, said, I'm kind of new. I need a job. They said, great, we need a bookie. It's like, oh, crap. I was thinking, like make coffee or something. But so I'd been a bookie before, so I did it again and dove into the program, got really immersed in it and doing the same old thing. Don't drink, go to meetings, ask for help, go to commitments, sit down, shut up, get in the car, that kind of stuff. And it started to not feel right again, but faster. And I was scared because I was like running out of options. And I started to hear guys talk at meetings in ways I'd never heard them talk about actual spirituality and God and things like that. And I found out that there was a thing called Big Book Step Study. And so I realized that the only thing I really hadn't done in AA was the steps the way Bill Wilson and his group had done it. So I figured I got to try that. So, I got into that. And after a while, I picked two guys I wanted to ask to be my sponsor, but I figured I'd screw it up. So I asked someone else to pick for me, and he picked the right guy because the other one had went out afterwards. And so my sponsor's name is Larry, and he was very large and intimidating, and I had issues with guys. But I figured this was what God wanted me to do. I was trying to do God's will, trying to like not make my decisions. And so Larry agreed to take me through the steps. And he was very kind, very gentle. He's still my sponsor. He lives in Massachusetts. And he shared with me about his powerlessness and the things he had done. And it helped me to stop feeling terminally unique. He was really gentle, but he was open and he was honest and he was patient and he was kind, and he guided me through it. I did the reading, and then we went to go over the reading and we talked about everything. And I'm still powerless over alcohol. It doesn't matter that I've been sober 45 years. It doesn't. I am an alcoholic, and I could pick up another drink or a drug. Sometimes I watched Breaking Bad a couple of years ago. I never watched it before. And there's a scene where the main character for the first time shoots up and he floats up off the bed, and the camera stays above him as he floats up. And man, my gut turned. I was just like, ooh, something inside me said, oh, I want to try that. It was really scary. It was, so that things like that helped me remember that I am definitely an alcoholic. And my first sponsor told me, it doesn't matter if you chew it, smoke it, snort it, shoot it, or drink it. It's all the same. And I firmly believe that. That may not be the way that AA talks about it, but that's what I believe. So powerlessness and is important. Today, I'm not powerless over alcohol because I don't ingest it. I have a higher power. My higher power on a daily basis helps me with power and allows me to not drink, because I choose every morning not to drink. And I have to do that every day because it's a one day at a time program. Thank you very much.